Hello everyone and welcome to our first episode for TSI Talks, the Strategy Informer Talks, and we are talking with indie game developers about their game and their journey as a video game developer. So, here we are, I'm the Orcocast, and with me today is Ross from D20 Studios. Hello Ross, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Orco. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, you're welcome, and I'm glad to have you on because we are going to talk about your project that you currently have on Steam. It is in early access. A demo is also available, so everyone check that out. If you have Steam, link is in the description. You should definitely check it out. It's called Summoner's Fate. How did you come up with that name?
Actually, my animator came up with that name. We were brainstorming possible ideas for what we would call it. And what he suggested this was because the game heavily relies on calling creatures in the battlefield, hence the summoning. And the other piece of it is that the player is the role of what's called the guide. So you're kind of looking at the battlefield from this top-down perspective, guiding your heroes and deciding what their destiny will be. So you've got the summoning and the fate, and that made the name, I guess.
Okay, that's actually pretty fun way to come up with the name. So I before we got into interview, I played the demo for like half an hour, and I want to see if I'm correct. Like, I always ask people what are their inspirations to make the particular game they're currently making. But in this case, I'm pretty frank and I'm pretty upfront. I seen two big inspirations for your game, and I want to know if I'm right. So the one is obviously in your studio name, D20 Studios, Dungeons and Dragons, or at least a D20 system in some way, and the other one would be Magic the Gathering. Am I correct?
Spot on. Yes, absolutely. Very good.
Yes. So but do you also have like other minor inspirations for the game, or is that really those are the two big ones?
I could also throw in, there's a board game that was a really big fan of called Hero Quest by Milton Bradley in the late 80s.
Oh my god, I still have that. I still have the original Hero Quest here at home.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, same here. And then the other game would be Warhammer. So I played both the fantasy and 40K variants, but I love those tabletop tactics, turn-based type of games. Used to enjoy playing those with my buddies, and that was a big inspiration for what we wanted to do here, was take that tabletop experience, bring it to the digital world and make it so you could play it with a lot more accessibility.
That is awesome. By the way, I'm also a huge 40K fan, if you don't
What
mind me
armies do you
saying
play?
that.
I'm curious to know.
Orcs, obviously.
It's funny I asked that because I'm like, oh man, it's the second I asked, I go, oh my god, this is so obvious. He's got the wog in his. Oh yeah.
The orcs.
Mark Eldar. My wife has an army of Tyranids that she's painted, and then I've got the Bretonians and the Lizardmen for fantasy.
I have one theory about Warhammer 40K. The orcs are the only good guys because they take this like grimdark future and make it fun for them. So they are the only good guys.
You have a good point. I don't know if I'd want to live in the Imperium. I mean, it sounds so strict and, foreboding, and like everyone's a servant, and I don't know. You're right, the orcs do make it fun.
Okay, so back to your game. How long have you been developing your game before you release it into early access?
Before releasing about right around 6 years it took us to get from the initial production stages to get it to the early access, and probably be another year before full release, so it'll probably be about 7 years at the time we do our full 1.0, I'd say.
That is actually a very long journey. And why did I mean, is it your first game?
This is our second game.
Your second game, okay. And why did you exactly decide for an early access release?
We went back and forth on whether we would do the full 1.0 or the early access, but it had gotten to the point where I felt that there was just so much we still wanted to do, but the game also had so much already in there, and I wanted to really kind of expand the audience that we were collaborating with in order to help move the game forward. So like our studio's really big thing is player-driven development. We've had players involved since the inception of the game and all the way through every phase of development. But we do it in stages. We start off with like really small groups. Like I had maybe like 5 players from our last game that joined conference calls with us and we asked questions to, and then we slowly started adding more and more players. And it got to the point where we felt like, you know what, we should take this to Steam and get their perspective, because they're gonna have a whole different way of seeing things than what we might have anticipated. And so yeah, put it in early access. I couldn't be happier so far with the results, by the way. Like, I'm getting so much great feedback from the Steam community.
I mean, it sits at 91 positive reviews from 135 reviews. So this is actually for an indie release, might I add. And you probably didn't have a marketing budget, let's be honest. So for a release like yours, it's pretty impressive. Because I mean, I'm not that long involved in the indie scene, like for 4 years now, but I've come in, like, I feel like it is a, in quotations, big success so far. So,
thank you.
First of all, congratulations. And now that we have that out of the way, what was your first game? I didn't know you made a first game.
Oh, sure, yeah. So the first game was called Hero Mages. That was also a tabletop-inspired combination of strategic card and turn-based tactics, but it was a purely multiplayer-driven game. So it was actually, we had a physical board game prototype we made of it, and then decided to take that to digital, and it was delivered initially as a free-to-play Flash browser game in 2009, and then I later took that and made it into a mobile app. So it was one of the first cross-platform multiplayer games that you could play, and it also had real-time turn-based and asynchronous mode too. So you could play it kind of like Words with Friends style, back and forth over email.
Pretty cool. That's old school, over email.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't technically email, but like the push notifications.
Yeah. That is pretty old school though. Yeah, the push notifications. Your friend made that turn. Now it's your turn. It's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty old school. I still remember playing over email. I'm that old. So, and when did you personally start out as a game developer? What was the humble beginnings of Ross?
Sure, the humble beginnings. I mean, I've always been fascinated by games. Even as a kid, I would like create prototype board games. But I guess if I were to say professionally, I would probably consider at the time in which I started the first game would be the fair point. That was in May of 2006 when I started creating the actual like physical board game for what became Hero Mages, and then officially founded my indie studio in 2009. So 3 years later, after we had kind of built the initial workings of the product, that's when I consider it having started.
Okay,
and yeah, it kind of continuing to that, if you're curious.
Yeah.
From my journey as an indie, I was working as a software developer full-time at the time at a company doing interactive learning. So it was a friend of mine who pushed me into moving from like designing board games into programming it as a game. And initially I felt really intimidated because programming, e-learning is nothing. Well, there's some crossover, but making a game seems very intimidating by contrast because you've got like multiplayer systems, AI, all kinds of crazy things. It was just sort of like the initial challenge of that was sort of like all right, I'm going to put my buddy to the test, and I started working on like a few simple systems. And as I started going at it, I realized like, wow, I actually got this to work. Maybe I should try the next step. And it was sort of like taking each step forward would give you motivation to kind of continue the process. Then throughout that whole thing, as I was working on the game, and then initially when I released the game, I was also doing a lot of extracurricular stuff. So like going to gaming groups, specifically with Adobe Flash, there was a lot of groups. This was the time in which Flash was like becoming the height of its peak, where they were using it, promoting it strictly for like game development. So I'd go to a lot of these talks and do technical talks on how to build things with it, and eventually became like they call like a community evangelist, community user group type person. And that ended up getting on my resume, and Headhunter from EA saw that on there, and they recruited me to come to Electronic Arts, where I ended up working there for right about 4 years as a engineer manager, and then later as a producer on mobile games.
Interesting. So I feel like that one point I want to get a bit more into is your point where you said you felt like it was very intimidating at first. And I feel like that a lot of people say, I'm gonna be a game dev mom, and they completely underestimate actually what that means. A lot of people just see on a surface level a cute little game and they don't know what amount of work actually goes into it. It's crazy. Or do you think like this casual, I'm becoming an indie dev? Like, it's basically the same thing like with people saying I'm becoming a content creator. Like this casual thing where nobody knows what actually what kind of work actually goes into those two jobs.
Yes, yeah. It's funny. My wife and I often talk. My wife is a recruiter, and her and I often talk about how we'll come into jobs thinking it's always easier to do someone else's job. No one takes and gives credence to what goes into the details of the work. Everything's high when you talk about it as like the idea person. That's the job in game development everybody wants to have. Like, I just want to be the person that kind of like comes up with ideas and let somebody else figure out what it was. And the great example I used to love for that was like, yeah, it's like person who says, you know what a great idea would be? A time machine. It lets you travel back in time, you can manipulate history, you can become a millionaire because you can predict the lottery numbers. Yeah, that's my idea. Go ahead and make that, you know? And they come up with that idea like, it's just like, yeah, of course it'd be a great idea, but the actual work of making that involves like breaking the rules of reality and stuff like that, and that's what game developers do. So that's kind of why I totally share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think there goes a lot of stuff into it. I actually had my own taste of that when I started making my own game. So you don't actually really know what's going on until you do it yourself. And I'm even using baby's first engine, RPG Maker, so there is that. And that's easy to use. Talking about engines, what kind of engine did you use on Summoner's Fate?
I'm using the Starling engine for the graphics processing. It's like it's built on top of ActionScript, so it's kind of funny actually. The game's actually built in what would have been called Flash like years ago. So I'm still using like the old school ActionScript 3.0 language, but they've got a modern compiler for it that lets me convert it from what would have been like a web browser type interface to a PC. Cross-platform interface, so I can publish it similar to how Unity can publish to multiple platforms. I can publish to multiple platforms. But the downside is I don't have the benefit of like, when you talk about RPG Maker, that's a full service engine. It's got like everything you could think of you would need to put the graphics on screen, to handle like the visuals, the AI or pathing, things like that. So all those parts of the engine, like the AI, the pathing, those are all custom written. So like I wrote my own animation system, my own particle system, my own pathing system. All those things are handcrafted.
Yeah, but you have one advantage. So I know that, like you said, this is a huge advantage that RPG Maker is very modular, I would say. Like, you have your bits and pieces and just put them together. But you know what kind of advantage you have over RPG Maker?
What's that?
You don't look the same. Like, every RPG Maker, except if you put naked tits, it looks like the same fucking shit.
I'm actually glad that you say that. What's the effect? I call it like the homogenization of games, like especially like game. Well, I haven't noticed as much in RPG Maker, but definitely like a game that's made in like Unreal, for example, like because they all use or Unity, they all use the same asset packs and the same rendering effect. So like you can immediately tell when you jump into those games, like, oh yeah, this looks like it's a Unity game or it's an Unreal. This is an Unreal game. Like the water effects are very Unreal. Like it's the certain. Yeah, you're right. You're right about that for sure.
See? I mean, your game, I'm gonna be honest, this is my first feedback, but you won't change that now in development. I like the art style of your game and like everything. I think it stands out in that regard. But one thing I don't like is like the hard from above perspective. Like, I wish it was a little more at an angle, but that's just a minor complaint, so that's just me. But overall, it looks really good and has a very unique art style. And I guess the like hard down angle was like chosen because of either some form of art limitation or whatever. Enlighten me, why was that chosen?
I'm glad you bring this up. Actually, the art style is probably one of the most polarizing aspects of the game. People either love it or they hate it. I'm glad you're you're kind of interesting in the middle, that you can kind of tolerate it and play it. But so it actually has a very core reason for why we picked the top-down perspective, and that is that it helps out with the gameplay tremendously. It's purely gameplay-driven decision. So from a top-down perspective, you've got the advantage of being able to have the characters rotate to face any direction. With the standard isomorphic projection, you've got essentially 4 facings you can have the characters project in. And each one of those facings is going to require a different piece of art to achieve it, because you've got to show like the front, the side, the back. With the top down, you can just rotate the character and you've got a full 360 view. This is very important for our gameplay because all of the character's abilities, the facing matters for. So like if you attack a character from the front and they have a shield, they'll block the attack. You attack that same character from the rear, they get backstabbed and they can't counterattack. So being able to have that top down and clearly distinguish which characters are facing who is why we have it. Because in an isometric game, you would be really hard pressed to tell which angle, because you can only use those 4 angles the character is actually facing at.
I can see why you did that, because like I said, I played the tutorial and then one dungeon run earlier, and yes, I found out, for example, if the enemy is behind me, I won't stab back, so it's just what happens. No, I feel like it's a lot also about strategic positioning in the end, the game, and yeah, it makes just sense what you said. So I'm still not a fan of the perspective, but I accept it as it is, and I accept it for that very reason. Makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's similar to Warhammer too. Like, imagine if you're playing Warhammer, the biggest issue we were trying to solve is like, what's the biggest thing you fight about in Warhammer? It's always the line of sight. You know, like whether you can see that tip of the vehicle or not is the matter of life and death for all the troops on board.
Yes.
That's why we have all that built in there. So it's like you can very clearly see like where the shadows are. Where it'll even draw like the little line of sight marker is even inspired by like that red stick that used to come with like the boxes. You know, like the red measuring stick. It's like we use that line and we kind of cut it with the dashes where the line of sight breaks at, because that was such a big tension point in our Warhammer games.
I used to play Warhammer competitively in my native home country. Yes.
I don't know how that's possible.
It's not, but I've seen people like punching each other in the face over it.
Yes.
Over the line of sight. So
the game takes like hours to play, and so you're so vested by that point, and it's like now it's like you've gotten to like you're 2 hours in, and it's like whether or not this thing is seen or not is the matter of whether you're gonna lose or not. So you get super heated about it. I've seen people flip over pieces and knock things off the board because of that. It's crazy.
Yeah, people get very angry. So there is no way people can get angry there, because it's their fault if they don't position right.
Exactly. Yeah, make it clear. The rules are fair. That's for sure.
So how many people does D20 Studio have? We are not talking about like external contractors. We are talking about the core team.
Sure. So at the time right now, there's effectively just myself. I'm doing all the programming, updates, maintenance, community management. I guess I could also include my wife and my son, who also both help with the play testing of the game. So whenever I get new builds ready to go, they'll be the first play testers that go through it and make sure everything looks good before I submit it to the public Steam build. But that's kind of sort of an unfair way to advantage it, because I haven't always been alone. It's just like right now, that's the kind of where the team's at. Initially, when we started the project, I had there was 3 of us, then 4 of us, and then 3 of us. The other people would be involved would be our animator. So Peter, he was the guy that did all the character animations and helped with building out the aspects of our character engine with us together. And he also did some of the early art directing. And my wife Kelly was also our kind of like our head marketing person. She would do all the social media posts and kind of come up with all the creative ideas for the newsletter and things we would use to kind of promote the game. And then at some point we had another marketing person that came on board. His name was Woody, and he helped out with our early access launch. So he was like a temporary member of the team during that period as well.
Okay, so it basically like it always is in game development studio, when their side time gets bigger, and once most of the work is over, it deflates. We know the cycle if you're a little bit invested in the gaming industry, because that's just completely normal.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's why it's a hard question to answer, because I want to be fair to give everybody credit. It's just tough, because like whenever someone asks that question, I'm like, well, what do you consider counting? Because and of course we obviously use contractors too that help out with the like the art production and the UI. There's a lot of the art in the game that we had produced by other folks as well that should get credit for that.
Yeah, then let's give them some credit and tell me a little bit about those.
Okay, cool, sure. Ore Studios, they're the team they're an art production studio based in Indonesia. We've worked with them for the past 2 decades. They helped create art for our first game, have done all the art character production for Summoner's Fate. Then we have another UI artist that was from Argentina that she did all the new UI art we had. For a long time, the game had like just programmer art. I just kind of made different variations of programmer art for the UI, and I specifically saved it for the last because I know that in games, UI is particularly sensitive to players, and so you want to have something that's really clear, matches the aesthetic and stuff like that. So we had a dedicated person that did all that for us. Yeah.
I'm gonna be a bit more specific here. I think especially in card games, the one you have, the UI is even more important. And what's even more important is the card design itself, because I feel like you should totally see from the drawing on the cards what the card actually does.
Yeah.
So there's that. Yeah, so I get it. I would consider the cards UI too, in a way. So yeah, especially here, I feel like UI is very important.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
if you count your fingers, how many people have worked overall on this project?
Oh God, let's see. I'm gonna try to add it up in my head here. Let's see, maybe 7 people on the art production team. I'm not sure how many I'm not sure exactly how many people have worked on the art team, but let's say 7 on the production team that have worked at any given point. UI artist here, Leslie, myself. Let's say probably around 13, 15 people. That's my rough guess.
That is a big number, actually.
So I gotta include the music guy too. Yeah, so I'd say probably around 15 if I were to think of all the people that actually like produce some kind of a work that was interjected into the game. So whether it be like a sound effect or a music track or the UI, yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot involved.
Yeah, that's quite a number. I mean, we already touched upon it a little bit, but would you yourself consider the game a success so far?
Yeah, I would consider it a success so far. Absolutely. Yeah, it's certain. I mean, I have very high like expectations and standards, and those have obviously been changed a lot over the years. This is my first time releasing on Steam, for example, so I had a lot of wildly different expectations about what Steam would like and what versus the reality. But considering, kind of like I said, where that gamut's at, and what you've already mentioned about like having as many reviews as we do for a first time launch on Steam, like it's really good. I'm happy with it, and I also think that you're well positioned for getting the game set up for the full 1.0, and I think that will give us even more exposure and audience to it. So, yeah, I mean, of course, I would always love to have more players, more reviews, but at the same time, I'm very, very grateful for the attention we've gotten so far, the feedback we've gotten so far. The player community has been amazing with giving us just lots of support, lots of love, and lots of great ideas on how to take it to the next level. So yeah, absolutely, I would consider it a success.
That is great to hear. And on more of a personal level, because I feel like you were more thinking of numbers, successful numbers, but on a more personal level, if you think, did you grow as a developer from the experience you had, for example, developing this game? What's your greatest success there?
Oh my God. Yeah. In terms of just personal growth and development experience, yeah, I mean, light years worth of education here. Just, oh my God. So one of the things I'm really excited about with the game is the AI, for example. It's currently using the 2nd generation of AI I wrote. The very first time I wrote the AI, I knew nothing about AI. In fact, I dropped out of my AI course in college because it was just like too overwhelming for me at the time, and I had so much other stuff going on. I'm like, this is beyond my brain. Then so I wrote the AI for the first game, Hero Mages, using like a kind of like a flow chart type pattern, and then this AI engine uses a whole different thing where because I had to be able to have it learn 300, 400 plus cards. The first game, by contrast, had only 40 different cards. So, like, 10x the number, right? And it had to also be able to like learn and use new stuff as I created it. So the whole new engine uses like a simulation based approach. So it'll actually like try out different things, and then if the strategy, it'll calculate how many points it thinks that's worth, and then do a whole different set of things and calculate that. And so it's a lot more intelligent. And I hope to even improve that upon that. So there's that education to it. The entire like overworld single player aspect of it, I had never done anything like that before. The first game I had done was strictly a combat affair with one map, and now we've got this entire open world that has to seamlessly connect together and be able to flow without any kind of like loading delays or anything like that. So that was a fun challenge. We've got the whole aspect of the actual production pipeline. I mean, just within that, like, so we have our target goal for like the 1.0 launch is 200 playable characters, which is like an insane amount of like, because they're all animated, they all have unique attacks and stuff like that. And so we had to figure out a way as indies with like very limited budget to produce what would have probably cost millions of dollars for a AAA team to do. So we had like a whole series of like really innovative things we did to make that happen. Like our animator and I, we worked together to create the system where essentially the way it works is like if you took Legos, and I think of it like the little Lego pieces, like you've got the little Lego guy with his little legs and his little head, and maybe you could stick a little jetpack on or something like that. We designed each of the little component parts like that, so they all have their own little animation engine. So we can then mix and match parts. So if I want to have like, I have a dragon that has wings. I can take those wings as a separate animated piece, stick it on a humanoid, and now I've got an angel. I can take the snake, we've created the snake armature, and stick it onto a Medusa, make a beholder. I could use it as a dragon's tail. I mean, like all kinds of things, and that's just a few. There's so many more things, but I could go on and on. So if there's anything particular with that, let me know what you want to hear more about.
I think that's good. I feel like you, and this is what I like so much about doing this. I really can hear you, how proud you are of your work. And I love that. I really love that for you, because you sound like some dad that's talking about his child, and that's a good sign. Because I feel like this is what it's all about, the process of creation, not procreation, but creation. Sorry.
Creation, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I feel like you're very happy with the product you made.
Yes, I would say so.
That is good. I mean, like I said, I couldn't go very in deep with it, unfortunately, before the interview, but I will definitely go back at some point and play more of it, because I'm very intrigued where everything goes, right? And
absolutely.
I mean, I was surprised actually, and even it's a little bit humorous. The only important question is, can I summon an orc? I know I can.
Yes, profound. Yes, there are so many orcs in the game. You can play as an orc. Actually, they're one of the playable characters. In fact, he's on our cover art there. That's Dork Slayer. So it's like
Dork Slayer.
Orc.
He's my brother already. Dork Slayer.
Yeah. He's got a giant hammer, and it was kind of funny. We had a contest, or like an interactive thing we had when we were developing the game of what his name should be, and we had all like just really hilarious choices. And I think that was the one that got picked amongst the community, because it was kind of like it had the orc name in it, but it was also sort of like, if you say it fast, it sounds like Dork Slayer, which was kind of funny because it was just like the orc making fun of like the nerds playing D&D within the game that's like D&D. So it was a very kind of like a funny creative thing. But yeah, he's awesome. He summons goblins, and so there's goblins too, and goblins make an appearance in almost every one of the biomes. They've got some kind of funny thing they're getting into, like they're trying to chop down a tree to make trying to chop down a tree for making a Christmas tree, or they're hunting a griffin because they want a Thanksgiving dinner, things like that. It's really silly. We don't take it too seriously. It's meant to be like when you play D&D, it tends to devolve into like just pure humor. That's why people like it, because you get to be creative and do things that you can't do in real life, and you get to laugh about it. So if we made it like really dark and foreboding, like everything is like scary, it would lose the magic that I consider to be like the best part of D&D, which is the laughter, rolling the dice, failing, and then laughing about it. That's what makes D&D fun.
Yeah, I agree with it. I used to play an orc barbarian in D&D, who was actually a pacifist and tried to first talk with everyone about their aggressions and why they now attack him. And at one point, when the other party wouldn't listen, he would get so angry that he murdered everyone.
Yeah, there you go. That's perfect. See, I love that.
That's D&D. That's D&D.
D&D, absolutely.
Or any other roleplay universe, really. It depends always what you make of it.
Exactly. Yes, I love that. Yeah, that's where we got weird things like the squirrel early.
Yeah, I had a good laugh at that squirrel staff. That was funny because I like that you basically can just throw the squirrels at someone and then they also can bite. And okay, it's actually pretty useful if you think about it. Get 2 attacks.
Then you get cards later on. You can take the squirrels, you can mutate them into superhuman Hulk squirrels, or you can turn them into little grenades where they have like a fuse in their back, and if they get attacked, they explode and blow people up. But there's all kind of things you can do with this.
But you know what your game is missing?
What's that?
Killer tomatoes.
Killer tomatoes. All right, it's going on the list. No idea is too weird for some reason.
As a little reference to one of my favorite movies of all time, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. I haven't seen it, and I'll have to check it out now.
You have to check that one out. It's trashy as hell, but it's also fun as hell. Talking about trashy, so again, you can find Summoner's Fate on Steam. Demo is out. I highly recommend it. Game is currently in early access. It is $20 or your third world country equivalent. And with that being said, we are moving on to the gaming industry because since we are talking about trash, might as well talk about the gaming industry a little bit.
Sure.
So, we obviously have a lot going on in the gaming industry, especially in the last, I feel like, 2 years. There has been happening a lot, and there's also a lot of change happening at the moment. I feel like the big publishers like EA, I mean, you worked for 4 years at EA as well, are more and more trying to chase like monetization trends, or even trying to put mobile game like mechanics into AAA games. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree?
No, I absolutely agree. Yeah, I've
Okay.
got a lot of friends and former coworkers that are, that's exactly what they're describing as happening. Yeah, because we all started together in the mobile industry, and it's interesting because they talk a lot about how AAA the council sector is now really interested in bringing that to the board, but they're still behind catching up because the mobile's got like this been figured out for a long time, and now they're trying to shift it over to consoles. So that's definitely happening. Yes.
Yeah. How do you personally feel about that?
That's an interesting question. Well, I mean, I think it's the way things are going, for sure. Being an old school gamer like you though, it's weird. And I guess I'll put it this way, like my attention span for gaming, especially like being a full-time indie and a lot of my time going to that, and being a full-time dad, has been that, I need to have games that I can just sort of jump into, right? I want to acquire an experience that I know is good, and with so many things in the market and so much things competing for attention, it's already hard to make the choice of which game you want to, sit down and play. But then if I have to then go into a game and now I have to effectively, grind my way through to get to the point at which the game becomes viably competitive, or like where I can compete with other players, that's a challenge for me. That's a barrier, I guess you would say. Like I remember back in the day, I used to love playing, like one of my all-time favorite LAN party games was Battlefield 1942. Like it's just an exceptionally good team-based cooperative game where you get to use your buddies. You each play a different role, you're each playing a different class, and you work together to overcome the enemy. And now it's like the modern versions, you just start off with such a huge disadvantage because that game's already complicated enough to learn with the weapons that you all have equal playing field with. Now it's like I feel if I jump into a game like that, I've got to now grind to get the better shotgun, grind to get the better rank and abilities. And so if I jump into a game like that and I'm competing with players who make this their career essentially, and they're playing it hours and hours a week, even if I'm skilled at the game and can I know how to fight in first-person shooter, I'm at an incredible disadvantage because the people who have been playing and winning are just going to keep playing and winning better than me. So essentially, I become fodder for the more experienced players, and I can't enjoy the game on the same level of what it initially offered when we all start off in the same playing field. So I guess that's my way as a gamer of describing where I think that trend is harming games. It's taking away the essential quality that made it like thing we could all have a fair shot at experiencing into something where it's like now we're going to reward people who just have more time to play it, even if they're not more skilled.
I feel like another thing that I personally don't like is that a lot of people, for example, think that a game, or especially a multiplayer game, has like constantly like getting updates, for example. I had that discussion earlier on stream with somebody that was an actually interesting discussion also, but that's more a player expectation I don't like. I'm a very big fan of Demeo. I don't know if you've played that.
I haven't played it, but I am familiar. That's like the VR tabletop style game that's got all the, you can play with the headset, and it's got like cards and miniatures essentially like recreated.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. It is a fantastic game. It is so well made, and you can, by the way, also play it without VR headset, and I highly recommend doing that. If you have like one friend or even 4 friends, just get it and play it. Like to you, Ross, and to everyone else who's listening, get Demeo. Like after you get Summoner's Fate, you are going out and get Demeo, okay? And I had this discussion with somebody else who said, yeah, after I played everything in Demeo, there's nothing else to play. There's no replay value. I don't know. Why do you just replay it then on a higher difficulty? Or get some friends and replay it? Like, a lot of the stuff that Demeo does, and does well, is also like the situation that come during the gameplay or when you play with other people. Like that's a lot of the replay value. I don't know how much I've loved with my friends about like getting a critical failure when it mattered the most. Like, you have this one fireball that could save your life, and then you get a critical failure.
Also very D&D.
yeah, and you just start laughing at it, And I don't understand. They are still, by the way, it's also still in early access, and the devs are still updating the game. They're bringing out a new class right now. And I don't know, like, saying there is no replay value after I played everything in an early access game is kind of weird to me. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, not everything needs to be a live service or something that is constantly updated. I don't know where this expectation comes from, especially, like I said, with multiplayer games.
Oh. From the point of view of the content continuously updating, I can definitely see that part of the industry. Obviously, I'm very much probably doing myself. Like I built our game Summoner's Fate to be something that's going to be like I'd like to be working on this game for the next 10 years. And the reason is, number one, it's really hard to conceive of an idea or a game and get it discovered, right? Like coming up with like a completely new novel concept that hasn't been done yet before, and then trying to release like a hit every couple of years like that it's virtually undoable. Like, I mean, even the greatest game devs of all time, like the creator of Minecraft, I mean, like they had their one awesome thing they made, then how do you top that after that, right? You can't just create new things. So it's much when you invest a lot of time into something like a game, I think if you can find a way to keep players engaged with it and continuing it, there's a lot of benefit both from like a development experience and also just like a just general business sense too. It's a lot better to work on something that's a known quantity than try to risk creating something that's entirely new and unheard of. But for me, it's more like I just have a passion for this particular type of genre, and I want to just keep working on it and adding new things. I think there's a lot of potential to move it forward with new content and new ideas that players are helping to contribute to that end.
But I feel like here's the difference. Like, you do it because you want to make it. You want to update the game because you believe in it. You just don't want to make updates for the sake of updates so the game gets like updates, You still have ideas and you still want to do this. You feel like you have something that could the game in future updates make it even more better, right? And that's not really what I'm talking about. Like, I talk about this crap like, oh god, I have 5 weekly challenges that I need to do, or oh god, I need to unlock the skin, or oh god, I need to do that. Like that's not content for me. I don't need that. But then again, I'm super fucking old school like you. I didn't grow up on Battlefield. My favorite LAN game was Quake 3. That is even more reduced. Like you just clicked on play and then you were in an arena and the best one won.
Yes. Yep.
And I played that for 48 hours straight. Like, get the fuck out. Like, what do you mean replay value? Like, since when is honing skill, for example, not its own replay value?
Right. Absolutely.
That is something maybe it's just my mindset. I'm shit at games. Like I can't play video games, right? But at one point I have to ask, like, even if you want to be like not good at games, but when do you just stop enjoying games? Like, is it after 10 hours you've played it? I don't know. People don't seem to have like long-term or don't wanna long-term invest in anything anymore, or even say let's make it like this, let's hone my skills, or let's get the high score.
Right. So it's a motivational problem. You're talking about
yeah.
Actually, there's so many great things I could go off of from what you just said there.
Yeah, do it. Come on.
Okay, so here's the first one. In the creative industry at large, whether it's games, movies, books, whatever, there's two routes of which I conceive of how things come into creation. There's those who create because they have need to create and bring something into the world because they're passionate about it and they want to just make that awesome thing because they believe in it. And there's those who create because they see dollar signs and they're following an algorithm and they need to hit their corporate's bottom line. And those two create very different kinds of content. On the one hand, you've got the benefit of the first one, it's all genuine artistry, it's coming from a place of love. On the other one, you've got massive production budgets that can create things that are far more advanced and beyond what the other can create. I guess what you're really saying comes down to a question of, if the goal is to get more players playing the game, is the content just extending, like, is the time you're adding to the gameplay of quality or not? I guess that's the core thing. Like, when you mention things like, I have a daily quest, I have this I have to do, it's like you're essentially injecting like chores into the game. And many times I play these games and I have that sense to it where it's like, this is just a chore. There's not a sense of like a challenge or a personal growth in there. So is the game motivating me intrinsically, where I feel compelled to play it because I want to? Like, when you played Quake, you weren't getting anything for doing it. You were playing it because you felt a sense of growth and camaraderie amongst the people you were playing with it. You play a modern game that is driven by extrinsic rewards, such as skins or new weapons or whatever it is. You're playing because you don't want to miss out on something. So the reason you're playing is no longer associated with that internal feeling of growth and goodness that all humans desire, right? It's now about, you're essentially put onto like a dopamine chain where you're competing or doing things because you don't want to miss out on whatever thing the other players have or are doing. So yeah, it's a very different feeling in the long-termness of that game, and that's why I feel like at large people are becoming less trustful. Like I said, I definitely find myself less trustful of things. I'm very, like, as I've gotten older, I feel less excited about trying new things because I'm more often disappointed than delighted by things, because it always feels like you can just sense the gimmick, especially when you've been making games. You can kind of tell, like, oh yeah, this is here because they want to make you grind a little bit more. This is where the paywall is going to be, or this is where this is, and it takes away from that magic of like, wow, I didn't expect that, or wow, this is really challenging, I just have to beat that.
So here is my thing. I don't know how old you are. I disclose my age right now. You don't have to disclose yours. I'm 38. I don't have much time left. But
I'm 39, so I'm just a year older.
Okay, so you don't have much time left too. I like one point that you said, that you get more like hesitant to try new things. Think about this, because I'm actually someone who tries a lot of indie games. Like, for example, I apply for a lot of keys via Keymailer and so on and so forth. And I show them all on Wednesday on stream, right? And I always say, if I just find one pearl in a heap of shit, it was worth it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have found Summoner's Fate, for example.
It's true.
Because I have to say that from the screenshots and everything, I probably would have given you a pass at first.
Sure. Yeah.
And but that's also like a problem that I have, because if something doesn't like look really that great to me, like if there's something in the screenshots I don't like the perspective, this hard top-down perspective, I don't think at first, which I probably should do, why was this actually chosen? And you gave me a good reason for it. I said just, that looks weird, and move on, right? But that's a lot of people. Like, we all judge the book by its cover, if we want or not. This is just inherently with humans. This is like a human thing. That's why I try to identify as an orc. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, it's something that prevails, and I feel like that. Yeah, still, it's worth it. Like that's what I'm saying. Then again, I have the luxury that I often don't pay for the games, so I can also understand when somebody says, I'd have to buy it, that you get more hesitant. I get the keys from the developers because they say, hey, show off my game and whatnot. But yeah, that's still worth doing, because I think if you find, like I said, a good game within like 3 or 4 middling games, it was already worth it. Like last Wednesday, I had like 2 really good games that were a lot of fun out of 3. So there's that.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good.
It's a pretty good quota. But yeah, sometimes I just have 3 that are not so great. But that happens too. You just have to be honest with yourself and just do it. That's the thing. Point being is, I want you to try more new things.
Yeah, I know. I need to. That's probably my biggest downfall right now. Just the time is really competitive. It's weird how like it's like the most precious resource I have right now. It's more important than money. I think is time. I just feel like there's just so much less of it. Like everything I try to do just consumes so much more time than I expect it to. Like I like, even with these updates, I commit to these things and I have these goals for myself. Like, we're gonna try to get this update out next week, and I set myself to that. And then it's like the moment you get into it, you realize, oh no, there's this I gotta change, or this, or you'll just come across some kind of like bug or something like that just crushes you.
No, I agree with you. I think the older you get, like in your teens and early 20, yeah, you are time rich but cash poor. And as you get older, this switches. Like, you get cash rich if you do stuff obviously right, but you get time poor because you have different goals in different stuff that you want to do before you die. I know that sounds overly dramatic, but it is what it is, so I do feel like that there is something to it, that time, especially when you get older, is of the essence, and becomes even more of the essence once you just reach a certain threshold. That is very much true. So, coming back a little bit to the gaming industry, we reel the philosophing a little bit in. How do you feel about NFTs?
How do I feel about NFTs? Well, not my thing. Not for me. I guess it's my personal thing. I don't know. I've got a lot of folk in the industry that that are friends of mine that are see a lot of potential in it. So I'm open-minded to it. I guess I'm not like wholly against it or wholly for it. But my personal sense, at least when I initially think about the concept of it, is it feels like pyramid scheme. That's my gut intuition feel of the entire.
Because it fucking is.
Yeah. So that's my sort of like, I guess, intuitive sense of what it is, without trying to sound like insulting or to folks that are pursuing it.
I would be pretty straightforward with them. I would just tell them it's a pyramid scheme and move on. But I'm also German, so I can do that by trade. I can be blunt, allowed. I have my German pass.
Indeed. Yeah, no, there's just a whole lot going on there that doesn't feel right to me. And I said that's probably the biggest thing of it. It just feels like when something feels like it's too good to be true, it probably is. That's just like the natural, you get like the same feelings you get when you get like those con emails, it feels like that warning sense of like somebody's trying to con me. Like that's the feeling. That's that's what wall goes up in my brain when I hear these things,
I just recently got an email that was also funny. Some crypto coin wanted to be promoted on my stream, and they would have paid me $100 in their funny monopoly currency. I didn't even answer this. I just put it in the spam folder and blocked the email address. I have a very firm stance on that stuff. So yeah. I feel basically the same as you can tell. I don't think they have anything to do or have any business to be in games. And I'm very lucky that this trend kind of died off a little bit and not everyone is chasing it right now.
Yeah, that's the other thing I would say with it. If you are a developer and you got one, you're too late.
Yeah,
I definitely think that's the case. Like anyone who is going to make money off of it already has. Like that. Yeah, that definitely feels to
that train departed. If you hopped on it,
the vampire hunter games that were trending on Steam like a few months ago that all chased after Vampire Survivors. That's
so Vampire Survivors.
You had a few so many clones that came out right afterward, and now everyone's like trying to chase it, but it's like you're too late. It's just...
I know. I have Vampire Survivor itself and one clone with big titty anime girls.
There you go.
Because that's what I need in my life. So if you look at the gaming industry currently, what is your least favorite trend? Except if we already talked about it.
Oh man, the least favorite trend. Oh man, least favorite trend. It's a tough one. I don't know. I could see a lot of the things we talked about it being in there. I'd say it's probably this. Least favorite trend is what I would call the mechanization of creativity. And by that I mean the idea that we can replace last human workspace creativity with AI. That's probably the one that's got me the most peeved. I've gotten so many emails as of late for companies wanting me to beta their program for AI generating artwork, AI generating music. Soon it's gonna be AI does your coding for you, what it sort of is doing to me, I think, as a person who, like we talked about this, you have to make games to understand what goes into it and the craft of it, and it just feels like a step further than that person who says, I'm just gonna be a game developer, and you kind of get like that feeling like you don't know what you're in for, kid. And it's like now they're saying like, hey, my AI software can just take and do your job for you. It feels, I don't know, you know what I mean, like
it feels like you're being replaced. You can't say that because it is
because I don't think they can do it. First of all, I guess that's the first problem. I don't think these companies are going to succeed with this idea. It feels insulting. That's what it feels like. It feels like almost like the feeling of like you have so little understanding of what makes a game a great experience, that you think you can just produce it with an algorithm. That's why it feels like, come on, man. Like, and the sad thing is they're gonna get like some venture capitalist to invest millions of dollars. They're gonna build like a giant 10-story building with crazy office furniture to fund this thing, and then it's gonna just disappear overnight like the cryptocurrency stuff did, because it's not real. It's a fake ideal to think you can create an experience out of vapid algorithms, I guess.
They said that 10 years ago about art too, and now look where we are.
Right, but it goes back to that homogenization problem I talked about. Yeah, you can go to the Uniacid store, you can get lots of art and stuff like that, but are you going to stand out, or is your product going to look and feel like everything else that's out there?
No, and I watched actually a video about this not too long ago on YouTube, and this is exactly one point that person made who wrote that essay. It was more about art itself, but actually addressed everything. People who say this will empower you to make your own art, do you really think your art will stand out in the end when you let everything AI make it? Do you really think the wave, the tsunami of other people who will also finally make that one song, that one story, that one picture, that one game they always wanted to make, yeah? And they generate this with AI. Do you really think you stand out? Do you really think your project will be seen? No, it won't. Nobody will care.
Exactly right.
And that is, I think, the thing people do not want to hear. The problem is, and I've been there, I come from an industry where AI has taken over and where AI just fucked everyone, pardon my language, in the ass. I'm a trained translator and interpreter, and AI has completely overtaken everything in this industry. The only thing that you still do is editing. You edit AI translations. That's all you ever do. Because people don't want to pay for a good translation. They don't care anymore. The only thing an AI can't do for now is localization. So this is where you can get a niche. But they are working on that already.
Yeah.
So this is basically what happens. And I fully see this also being something. Oh yeah, and AI cannot do court documents and stuff like that. So I have a little bit of an advantage there, but still, there's only, so much time until probably they say, yeah, we are state approved now too, because our translations are so safe, we can do this too. And this is why I personally have a little bit of different outlook on AI, because when people say they won't overtake the industry, I've been there, I've seen it. They can. Not sure if they will, but they definitely can.
A scary thought.
I work under Skynet. I've worked under Skynet. I did it. I survived, but I did it.
No, it's funny you say that. You're probably right. You're probably right on that. Maybe I'm being just too guarded or too unwilling to accept that this could happen. But maybe it already has been happening. Maybe that explains a lot of the content we're seeing. I tell you this, it's even if it works, it's far outside the budget. No indie can afford these things. I mean, that's why I started laughing to get these emails from these people, because it's like, try out our servers, and it's only like $600 a month for like the entry tier to create like 3 months. I'm like, what are you talking about here? I don't have this kind of budget to dedicate to these things, and that's like the entry tier. Like for like a few samples of it. If I had to actually create my entire game with it, it'd be millions of dollars. So if you're AAA and you've got a team of 3D modelers or whatever it is that's creating the content this AI is doing, yeah, you could definitely save some money there. But again, like I don't know, maybe I just don't want to accept that this is happening, and I'm just being it's a term, stubborn about it. Maybe I'm being stubborn. No, but I guess for me, there's a sort of fundamental thing that's lost. What's lost is it's the hubris of it. I think it's the hubris that we can replace the thing that makes storytelling special by just having it generated.
There is no.
I guess I struggle with it because I myself, like, obviously I believe in AI. Like I said, it was one of the things I talked about. I'm most proud of is our AI engine. I want to create AI opponents that give you the sense you're playing another person, because when you don't have a person to play with, you want to have an opponent there to do it.
Yeah, but that's different. You want to create AI to give the player competition. You don't want to replace the player with AI.
No, and I don't want to replace the creativity. Like my goal of the game is to inspire creativity. That's if I were to pick one fundamental thing of what I'm trying to do, it's that inspire creativity in the person who's playing it. Because what makes a game fun or experience fun, that's why I like D&D. It inspires you to be creative. You get to have experiences that you wouldn't have thought about. Like the game is not really. It's a vehicle for inspiring creativity. That's what D&D is. That's what Summoner's Fate is trying to be too. It's a vehicle for inspiring creativity and for having fun experiences. We're working on the multiplayer. We want to have fun experiences with our players. But to take and say the AI could do that for you, that'd be like, I guess the equivalent of that would being like, I'm going to make my game to the point where you don't even play it. The AI takes your turns for you. You just, and in fact, actually, and that's becoming a trend too. They're called idle games. They have a whole genre of this where you don't even play the game. You log in and you literally just go through your checklist of tasks like you described earlier with the, daily quest, daily grind, whatever, and then you watch the game play itself. Don't play it.
Can I let you in on a secret about idle games? I fucking hate them.
Sorry, I just love the way you said that. It was so great. Yeah, I love your bluntness. I think I'm trying to be a little bit more like, I don't want to offend anybody when I'm talking on this thing, and I just love how you just say stuff.
So here is the thing. If you play idle games, I don't hate you. I will still hate the game you play though. That's the difference. So to get away from all the negativity and the doom and gloom a little bit, how about this? How about we talk about your favorite trend in the video game industry?
My favorite trend. My favorite trend is what I like seeing is when developers come together to support each other. It's hard to call it a trend. I feel like it's always sort of been there, but just like recently, I want to give a shout out to like the Turn-Based Thursday group. That had put together a Steam festival like devoted entirely to turn-based games on Steam. It was a completely indie-driven thing. I'm absolutely amazed at the amount of work to get into it because putting a Steam sale together is like a monumental feat, right? And to get like this group together, the really awesome organizers of this thing, they got all these indies involved, they put it all together, they got this amazing thing, they got streamers to come play all the games for them, they got feature spotlights for all the games. Like that to me, seeing the love and passion between fellow developers and that kind of camaraderie where we all sort of help each other out, we all want to see each other succeed. That by far the absolute best thing happened to the game industry. Just seeing that kind of camaraderie and connection and genuine support for each other. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah, I feel like especially when it comes to the indie or to the indies, there is a lot of camaraderie there, and people even help each other out. Like I had somebody reach out today to me who said, "Hey, I'm gonna make you a nice little cover for your game. For example, you don't have to pay me anything. I just do it because I love you," and that's actually really cool, you know, because I can't draw for shit. So there is that. And that's just something special, I think, that you don't find in the AAA gaming space. You find it in the indie gaming space. For example, I had somebody on the podcast who told me actually that he reached out to the Stardew Valley developer and got some feedback from him and some tips how to approach making a game.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so there is stuff there that actually works. So I feel you on that one, and I feel like this is really good. But I think it's even more prevalent these days because there's so many games coming out, and it's really hard at this point to stand out because the market is just so saturated.
Yes, people have gotten to be more creative too. Like we have to like. And that's why I said the trend's always been there, but it's sort of evolved with the challenges that have evolved as well. Like you're right, just with so much saturation, it's so much harder to stand out. So it's like you have to work even harder to group together and then, like I said, come up with these really elaborate things like regular cadences, regular opportunities to support each other with, and all these digital groups now, so that even when you're not at the shows, you know, and it's COVID definitely took a big hit on that, where you would personally meet all these people, you know, a few years ago, and then it sort of died there for a while. It's starting to come back, but in the meantime, all these virtual groups have come up, and you got like I'm a member of like so many Discord groups. It's hard to honestly keep in sync with all of them because there's so many. But
yeah, I agree.
And I love stories like that. I think it's one of the things I definitely feel like I want to give back, and I do. You know, like when everyone's on a different level of success with their game, and I think it's like a duty of every developer to share their success and help the next generation, you know, find their success as well. So other developers are working on games, they'll come and talk to me in my Discord and ask for help. I always help them. You know, do talks for your, you know, local groups, do YouTube videos to share things you've learned, do articles that talk about what you've learned and can share. Like I've got a whole series on there on GameDeveloper.com of different things like our trade show. One of the biggest things we talk about is our trade show experience. We go to different things like PAX, and we talked about, you know, what our budget was, how we got what we did to improve our reception and improve our demo to get more people to come play and things like that. How to do the marketing, how to do AI, all kinds of things. Just it's good to give back. Like that's probably the most rewarding thing to get success, but then to share that with others is what really makes it feel like it meant something, because you help somebody else, you know, live their dream too.
Yeah. And I feel like that's one great thing about the indie gaming space. I wouldn't say it's the entire gaming industry, but it's definitely the indie gaming space.
Yeah.
Oh, well, most likely it probably also exists in the AAA gaming industry on the ground floor as well. So I don't want to take away from the ground floor devs that like are out there and giving us the games we get and deserve. So shout out to you guys too.
Yeah, no, they're all good people. I mean,
yeah,
it's funny. At the time I worked at EA, it had been voted twice in a row worst company in the world award, and I was shocked to shocked to hear that. As a consumer, I could see why people get like up in arms against AAA, but as a person who worked there, it stung a bit. Because the folks I met in the industry working at EA were the greatest people I've ever known. And they were amazing, and they care a lot about their jobs and creating an awesome thing, and they're not. The developers and the artists, they're not greedy, scumbags that people seem to think that AAA is. They're amazing people, and they want to create games too, just like everybody else. It's just that, with the size and the direction and how corporations work, they just sort of gets lost in the masses, and and people forget that sometimes. So I'm glad you said that, because yeah, they absolutely are amazing people too.
I don't think like that when people give EA as a company the worst company of the year award. I see what you're saying, that it's stung, and that it's especially bad for like these ground floor people who are just there and want to make a good product, because I don't think that anyone sets out there and just goes in there and says, yeah, today we are going to make like Mass Effect Andromeda. That's a good idea. Let's make the shittiest Mass Effect version we can make, right? Nobody goes in to work with that mindset. I feel a lot is like at the higher levels, executive level and whatnot, and it is a shame that like this shit basically just falls down to them and they get caught up in it, because these people just, like I said, they just want to make good games. I don't think anyone goes to work on the day and just says, yeah, today I'm gonna make a shit game. Yes, that's gonna be awesome. Nobody does that.
Oh, even at the top, they don't say that either. So it's weird. I couldn't attribute exactly what causes it, but I would say it's too many chiefs, competing. I think
I do have it on. Let's put it that way. I do have it on good account that there is a lot of incompetence at the head of big studios. Yeah. I do. But yeah, even if they not really say I'm going to make a shit game, their decision-making process is what makes the game shit, and that's the problem that I feel like. And yeah, something needs to change, definitely. And they don't.
It's corporation, it's everybody. Everybody wants to get their name in the credits as like the person who like is attributed the most success for having done this.
Yeah, and in the end,
why every creative processor needs to be, someone has to put their say into it, so they can be like, well, see, this was my thing, and that's why this is a success. So they get the next goes to their next level, or whatever, and just gotta let the team that's working on it just have the reign, the trust to do it. Like, that's how you be a good leader. You don't take and try to take credit for the team. You just say, team, I have trust in you. Make the thing you're here to do. That's why they were hired. Let them do it.
Yeah, or otherwise we get Battlefield 2042. Okay, last question, and then we're going to wrap it up. So, you are at the United Nations. You are able to speak on behalf of all video games. What are you going to tell the United Nations about video games?
Wow. All United Nations about video games. Okay, I gotta think about this one. Is there a particular context? Are we trying to defend video games here, or are we just anything that comes to mind?
Anything that comes to mind. Just be in the scenario and just think on your feet.
Okay. All right. Well, I would say that it's good about games. That's what I want to focus on. Why video games are good and a positive thing for society. I want to end on a positive note. I think that games, more than anything, that we create today's world, have potential, the greatest potential, to bring people together in a way that is absent of race, absent of political view, absent of any prejudgments you might have of another person. You engage with a game with somebody else, you're there to enjoy and share a unique experience that completely pushes away all other outside boundaries or things you may care about, and you're there to share in that moment together. It doesn't matter what kind of a person you are, what you believe in, but when you're there in that game together, you're there to enjoy this experience with another person. That is the singular best thing I think games can do to inspire a sense of challenge, creativity, growth amongst fellow human beings, and bring them together in a sense that just yields positivity. And good feeling and brings people together.
I love that. And that is the perfect note to end it on. Ross, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. And everyone out there, please, please, please check out our website. It's thestrategyinformer.com. You can find also the link in the description. We talk about strategy games there all the time. And you can find my written words there. And you can find a lot of written words there by other wonderful contributors. So go there, check it out. And if you didn't do it already, hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. We want to get to 100 subscribers fast. So be fast and do it. Be awesome. And thank you everyone for being here. Bye bye.
Bye bye.